I think there are probably three really big decisions that people are faced with in life. One, if you have a faith, who or what do you follow? But we all follow someone or something. Two, who do I spend the rest of my life with? And most people have that thought process, not everyone, but most people do. And then three, what am I going to do as a job? And that third bit is the bit that we probably spend more time doing day in, day out than anything else, right? It can affect the other two.
Welcome to the Impact Multiplier CEO podcast. I'm Richard Metcalf, founder of X Quadrant, and my mission is to help the world's top CEOs and entrepreneurs shift from incremental to exponential progress and create a huge positive impact on our world. Now, that requires you to reinvent yourself and transform your business. So, if you're ready to play a bigger game than ever before, I invite you to join us and become an Impact Multiplier CEO. We talk a lot about leadership, but how about followership? This is a question that I want to explore in today's conversation with Logan Naidu. Now, Logan is a really fascinating, highly experienced, highly successful entrepreneur. He's built actually 3 businesses, including Kernel Group and Dartmouth Partners, which is actually been named by the Financial Times as one of the Europe's 1,000 fastest growing companies, as well as similar awards he's had from many other locations, many other magazines and publications. What I really love about this interview is that we go deep quickly. We look at how Logan himself is a follower as well as a leader. We look at how he, and actually how I, relate business and faith, that most personal of questions. We then look at how Logan has built a powerful business, almost one person at a time, created a network of 6,000 people who have allowed him to build something really extraordinary. We also look at how he has created a high-performance culture of excellence. This is something really key to who Logan is as a leader. And as a result, he's had a net promoter score that was off the charts. In fact, the consultancy who actually did the work said, even we can't believe how high this is. We've never seen something so high before. So there's a lot here to learn if you're a leader in any industry. How does Logan create such great customer advocacy? Well, we'll get right into that in this conversation with Logan Naidu. Logan, hello and welcome to the show.
Hi, Richard. Good to see you.
This is going to be a fun one. So we're going to start by breaking all the rules. But I mean, if I look at your bio, I can talk about the fact that you're the founder, CEO of Kernel Global and Dartmouth Partners, which is a multi-brand recruitment group named by the Financial Times as one of Europe's 1,000 fastest growing companies, the Sunday Times as one of the UK's top 100 fastest growing companies, and the number 1 fastest growing company in the sector by the Fast 50. So we can talk about all of that, but then we have the legendary Alistair Campbell, who said, we don't do religion. And we're going to immediately do religion.
Shock horror.
Because in our pre-call, you mentioned that you're a really committed Christian, and that's really profoundly influenced what you do. And as I'm also clear about in speaking with people, I'm also a committed Christian, and it really profoundly impacts what I do. And I think neither of us go around in our businesses kind of preaching or trying to, force people to believe things they don't want to believe all day. But on a personal level, it does really impact how we show up and perhaps the goals we've set for ourselves and how we run our businesses. So curious, where does that show up for you? Obviously, you've built successful businesses. How does faith come into that, or how does that show up in your leadership?
I don't know that people say it shows up in many aspects of the way I behave and act and think. I mean, I think one of the good things that maybe some of the kind of trends that we've got at the moment is we talk about being more holistically a person and, being comfortable with who you are in the workplace against this other, maybe parallel lens of we keep religion in a box and you're not allowed to speak about it. So in a way, it's a slightly uncomfortable start. I think it's quite an important start. I became a Christian at 21. I'm not from a Christian family. Both my parents were Asian. I'm half Indian, half Chinese, and had a Hindu upbringing. At 21, almost like a light bulb went off and the path for me was changed. And over the years, I've been a Christian longer than I've not been a Christian now. I'd hope that the way that I think about how to interact with people, how to try to bring a little bit of joy into my interactions, into the workplace. We have two big corporate values. We talk about kindness and excellence. And I don't always get it right by any stretch of the imagination, but I hope that I make an effort to try and treat people well, internally and externally. I always say, hopefully I'm generous with my time, but all those little snippets of how we interact with people. And my business is almost entirely based around human interactions. It's a consulting business. We don't make anything. Our assets are our people, and they choose to come back into the office each day or not. And so I'd hope those interactions with people, not we talk about it all day, every day, but my Christian faith slipped out through that.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one, right? Because some people might argue that, does entrepreneurship and being a Christian, are they really like, should they be mixed? There's certainly there's certainly a strand of Christianity, of spirituality, that would say, let's leave business aside, let's focus on other things. How have you had to reconcile that yourself, or has it actually been like a really easy kind of integration of those parts of your life?
There's two strands to that. I think that first bit, Park and doing maybe morally what's the right thing, is probably quite a 1980s, early 1990s way of doing business, right? And thankfully, I think we have not fully, but to a large extent moved on from that very hard-nosed, capitalism at all costs way of thinking about business. And so, whether it's an ESG agenda or a staff culture and morale agenda and retention and attrition, I think a lot of this is probably been allows me as a Christian to kind of implement some of these things with a lens of faith, but they're generally being good things for businesses and for the world anyway, right? And so whatever's been driving that agenda, and I'd say a lot of the good things that have been born about are very Christian things, actually. The way we look at looking after the planet, or trying to treat people equally, or looking after our staff. I think I think that some of these things are actually conceptually quite easy to get your head around. Then you get into the kind of practical part of implementing it and doing it, which was the second strand, which I think is incredibly hard, right? Because you only have to spend one day looking at your own heart and your own interactions with people and maybe your family, your wife, your kids, and how hard it is to act consistently and patiently and lovingly towards the people that you hold nearest and dearest to you, to realize that having consistency of thought, word and deed is nigh on impossible. So I think that those two strands run in parallel. One is aspirationally, who do we hope to be? And secondly, who are we in practice? I hope they're kind of going vaguely in parallel, but one's probably a straight line and one probably undulates more than it ought to.
Yeah, well, thank you for being honest. Yeah, as you're starting to speak, I was thinking about this dilemma as well, right? Which is that kind of tension, that like discomfort in these kind of conversations. Actually, that I was thinking, well, I'm certainly not saying that I'm sort of intrinsically better than somebody else with a different set of beliefs. And we probably both know many people who don't have the same faith, who act in a really, great and amazing way. And yet, like, there is this, but the kind of the demands of faith can, put this bar in our minds, which then we're really clear when we don't meet the bar as well, right? When we can see the gap between what we're called to and perhaps what we managed to achieve. And yet there's that motivation to kind of get back on the wagon and get there. I mean, for me, it showed up in my own business, I think, by in two areas. I think one is around fear, because I think there's like a question of fear versus faith. I mean, other people might call it scarcity thinking versus abundance thinking, right? But there's this question of, am I going to stay within the zone that feels safe and that I feel is manageable, versus step into, I guess what I would say is my calling, right? Step into the things which I feel I should be doing, the impact I want to make in the world. I think that's one part for me. And then the other part is around I guess love, right? Like, how do I, for example, I had a moment with my own clients. How do I help them understand that I really love them? I have their back, that they, I'm not just there to add value, right? But I'm also there to care. And for me, that was another key area. But I suppose I'm just explaining this from my own side, just because I think there's always a wrestling of, these are my values, and now how do I actually implement them in the day to day?
Yeah. And I think everyone, if they examine their heart, has that tension, right? Who am I and who do I aspire to be? And again, to use kind of very modern parlance, that journey that we're on is a journey of change. It's about maturity, but you've got to embrace it, and it doesn't happen in a straight line. Like, anyone that's trying to achieve anything realizes that this doesn't happen in a straight line. So, I might have a view on how do I grow as a Christian and as a business leader, and as a father and husband as well, and a son. Right? The relationship with my mother changes now as she gets older. All these things, they're all part of the journey, and they're very rarely static. And I also don't think that it's about constantly going forwards, right? Sometimes you're going to go backwards, and you won't understand why. So I think there are these different situations, but I think that you can look back on where you were as the past. I think you asked me at the beginning, how, what's that journey been like? And I guess as a 21-year-old entering the workplace, and I look back on the way I acted as a very immature 21-year-old and a very immature Christian as a 21-year-old, versus how I think I am today. There's probably a lot more self-control, both emotional, and the way I can probably handle myself as a coming up to 46-year-old versus as a 21, 22-year-old. You'd hope that you can handle yourself better. You might not have all the energy you had in your 20s, but probably hopefully some well-earned wisdom along the way that enables you to act differently or more thoughtfully.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So let's kind of jump in a bit deeper into the business journey. One thing I know is that in our conversation, you talked a lot about what you said earlier on, that in your business of consulting and recruitment, you have your people are your asset, right? I mean, you don't have a massive technology platform or factories or whatever else it is to rely on. It is people. And also in the customer side of things, you've created what we can describe an army of fans, right? You have a really, really high net promoter score that you've really put a lot of effort into having what you call fans and not customers. And so perhaps just kind of talk a bit about how these things kind of play together, because somehow whatever you're doing on those two sides, the employee side and the customer side, something's working because you've seen such amazing growth in the business. So how would you kind of articulate what worked as you built these businesses?
Yeah, it's quite. I mean, this is one of the things I gave a little bit of thought to. How do these two things entwine? And I don't think it's too much of a reach, right? So my faith is about being a follower of someone, and our business is about building networks of people, right? And fans not customers has been our tagline from pretty much the beginning. How do you build out something where people feel passionately about a service, and you wow them with that service when, let's be honest, recruitment is not up there with every mother's or father's wish list of, I hope my kids become a recruitment consultant. My son's had this dawning realization. He's 13. Had this big realization the other day that I'm only one rung above estate agents, as his mother told him, and you can see the shock horror in his face that might this actually be true. And I think it's one of those early glimpses when you start to lose hero status in your son's mind. But I was thinking, we started this business. How do you recapture and reframe this? Because I do think fundamentally what we do is actually fairly important as an industry. I think there are probably three really big decisions that people are faced with in life. One if you have a faith, who or what do you follow? But we all follow someone or something. Two, who do I spend the rest of my life with? And most people have that thought process, not everyone, that most people do. And then three, what am I going to do as a job? And that third bit is the bit that we probably spend more time doing day in, day out than anything else, right? It can affect the other two. So, as we were building this business, I think started to think about how do we make sure that our service wows people? And a lot of it is going out, doing all the things that you say you're going to do, which were broadly hygiene factors. And one of the reasons why the industry has a lousy reputation is because people do cut corners and because they're busy. That's kind of fairly natural and forgivable, but also sometimes you forget that there's a human on the other side who's wondering how their job search or process is going. So doing all the hygiene factors, but going out of the way to be helpful and useful repeatedly over and over and over again. And on a very small basis, I remember when I started out in this industry, my view is that I was dealing with fairly junior candidates at that point. And I thought, well, if I meet 6 to 8 people a day and they're all living with one housemate, because back in your 20s, you're on house shares, and they go home and say, I had a really interesting conversation with someone who's really helpful. You're individually building a network times 2 every day, right? So if I meet 6 to 8 people, that becomes 12 to 16. Do that repeatedly. Do the math over 3 or 4 years, you've got a network of 7,000 people. How can you instill that as a culture within the organization? So that's what we do day in, day out, and try not to think about things as just a series of short, sharp transactions, but a mechanism by which you're building a lasting relationship that will stand the test of time. And our best people and the best parts of this business are where clients and candidates have become intertwined and will use us over the years, time and time again, where people will say, I've got to call you because I've got to ask this question about my career. Is it the right thing to do? And we're not viewing it as a transaction, but can we give someone some long-lasting, good sage advice?
So let me just ask you here, because it sounds really simple, right? It's like don't cut corners and be useful to people. It's beautifully simple. Like, why don't more people do it? Like, what's actually, why is it so rare? Because it sounds so basic.
It is basic, right? It's conceptually so easy to understand. And our business has been built, a lot of our success has been built on that. And so, when people say, what's the playbook for building this business? You can say, I could give you the playbook, but the execution is so difficult. It's so I think why is it difficult? Because if we go back to, I guess, partly the condition of the human heart, right? By our nature, we want to cut corners, and by our nature, we don't always do what we say we're going to do. And so, what makes it difficult? And then I think you start to lose sight. As you get bigger, you can start to lose sight of what made the business special. And that is definitely a pain point as I look at the size and scale of our businesses today. How do you instill this idea that, to use an Amazon quote, every day is day one, right? You kind of restart to have that hunger of a startup over and over and over again, when you kind of know that actually the phone will ring and clients will call in and candidates will call you, that it's a privilege, right? I think it's an absolute privilege to be having those conversations. Don't take it for granted, because they can take their work and questions elsewhere to someone that's gonna be more interested.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because often we look for this super secret strategy and super complicated thing, and actually what you're saying is you build a business on a very simple principle of customer service.
Yeah, I mean, it's and we're all wowed by it, right? We're regardless, you can go into a shop or a restaurant and have great service, and they all do the same thing. One of the things that I've got 2 Prets really close by, so it's sort of maybe a kind of slightly crass analogy, but I've got 2 Prets really close by, and we go to both. One, the guys you walk in, you feel great when you come out, right? They always say hello to you. They know what you're going to order. The other one, always feels like you're just a nuisance. And I know that which Pret I prefer to go to, and that's, it's a commodity, right? You're picking up a cup of coffee from, I don't know how many Prets there are, one of the 600-700 Prets that exist in the UK, and yet one I actually look forward to getting a coffee from.
Yeah. So how have you embedded that how did you embed that ethos in the business? Because it's very well when you doing it when you're like a lone recruiter, but when you do start to have a team, were there specific moments of truth that you would ask people to really focus on, or how far did you want people to be helpful? Right? I mean, how do you kind of help define that? Was there any guideline?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we still get paid to transact. I think, again, culture is so nebulous, but I think broadly our culture has been, we talk about a culture of care and kindness and excellence. And I like to lead on excellence. Usually we want to be really good at this, right? And one of the markers of this is a revenue number, right? In any consulting profession is productivity. But the NPS score is probably the thing that I've been most proud of when we took that snapshot. It was last done formally by BCG in 2023. And they said at the time that this NPS score is so unusually high that it's almost unbelievable. And I thought, well, you guys did the work, so we'll take it. We'll take that on face value. But it's one of my proudest moments. For all the things that we've achieved along the way. I think it's like, you've built an army of fans, not customers. People are genuinely like, these guys stand out in a highly commoditized market, and a very well broke market. How do you stand out? You stand out with daily interactions, and how do we make sure that journey carries on? I think it's almost like a tribal mentality of passing the baton on generation after generation. How do you hardwire that into a workforce that gets further and further away from your starting point of where we were 11 years ago? And I think you do it through how you score your staff. So it's more the formal stuff around process and 360s and NPS scores and getting feedback from people. I think you also did through a lot of the softer stuff, through the rituals of telling people stories, sharing the anecdotes, sharing the wins. I think, again, in our industry, people really focus on revenue generated. I'm much more interested, or I should say probably as interested, in hearing about the stories of a client calling me up and saying, can I just say the service we just had from X? I don't know if you know who they are, but that blew our minds. And I really like that. There's a lovely story I have from a guy that was been a client from an early stage. And he's a very, very busy fund manager. And he wrote a lovely little anecdote saying, I just want to give a shout out to ex-consultants. I don't know if you know this, but we have a tiered fee agreement with you that we actually, we've hired a candidate who said that he took an entire Sunday out to brief them. He said, that's pretty impressive. What's even more impressive is we have a tiered fee agreement where we will pay you less if we hire a direct candidate. And this was a direct candidate. And he said that just really stands out as people going above and beyond. Now, some firms will say hugely uncommercial. Why are you doing that? I think I'm rightfully proud of that. I think that's brilliant.
I hope you're enjoying this conversation. This is just a quick interlude to introduce you to two transformative programs that we run. The first is Rivendell, my exclusive group of top CEOs who are committed to transforming themselves, their businesses, and the world. It's an incredible peer group and a deep coaching experience that will push you to new heights, no matter how successful you've already been. The second is Impact Accelerator, a coaching program for executives who are ready to make a big leap forward in their own leadership. It's regularly described as life-changing, and no other program provides such personal, strategic clarity, a measurable shift in stakeholder perceptions, and a world-class leadership development environment. Find out about both of these programs at xquadrant.com/services. Now back to the conversation. Yeah, I love it. So going back to this theme of followership. So what I'm hearing is within the company, there's a whole task of the culture, right? We've just been talking about, and but also I guess it's the same, right? The culture extends outside. I mean, it's two sides of the same coin potentially, right? With the internal culture and the external culture, the client experience, right? Because service is at the heart of it. Is there anything that you say is different, like things you try to do differently internally? So there's often a distinction between branding on one hand and kind of internal culture, and normally they should align as much as possible. But I'm wondering, kind of like, do you see things differently in any way? Do you focus somehow, when you're thinking about getting that NPS score really high, are there other things that you would do that are not directly based on the culture of the company, if that makes sense? Like, are there different initiatives, or is it kind of just one holistic plan?
No, I think to build a brand and to build followership, I think there are lots of things you can do. Because your point, it's incredibly simple in some ways, right? Do what you say you're going to do, and do lots of it. We do all the usual stuff, right? We'll put out some thought pieces, we'll do forums to help build affinity to the brand. I think that trying to do it in a really thoughtful, more strategic, less tactical way, and being really consistent. And one of my lenses on this, there's so much stuff out there available, and there's an awful lot of noise, and marketing, I think, again, in lots of services sectors, highly commoditized, right? If you take a good example, nearly every recruitment firm will put out a bonus survey, right, for the market that they work in. And I think that there's a rush to get it out, right? Now, when we started doing this, it wasn't my idea. It was a guy called Richard's idea, actually. And he said, look, let's make sure this becomes the industry benchmark. And we put a lot of time, thought, money, and resource into making sure that this is as thorough as it can be. We get way more data points, and we refuse to put it out until we've got a set number of data points per bank, per level, so that we've got reasonable confidence that this bonus survey has integrity when we put it out. And I know from talking to our clients that lots of bonus surveys will come out sooner, which are broadly indicative of what's going on, but people will wait for ours because that's seen as the benchmark of this is the one you can trust. And some clients now pay for it. It gets a reasonable amount of press coverage, but something as simple as that bonus survey, which everyone does, how do you make sure it becomes the benchmark? And I think you try and do that, and if you try to do that in every aspect that you touch upon, right? So I think, the people that do this almost par excellence with Apple, right? The care that they put into the packaging. When you open an Apple product and the way it slides out, it's a marvel, right? They've timed it and have worked out how long do we want it to take to come out of the box? What do we want the box to look like? How is it packaged? It is beautiful. You're buying an Apple product. And that whole aura and mystique that you get around opening an Apple product, I kind of want to try and build that into what we do. You could take a telephone call, and it could be very casual, or you're taking a call and you're going to get someone completely dialed in for 30 minutes onto you and what you want to achieve. It gets harder as you get bigger, right? Because you definitely fray the edges. But to your point, how do you make sure? I think you've got to shine a light on the good stuff and make sure those are your heroes, and you champion that consistently. And I think, again, in our industry, who gets a light shone upon them? It's usually the top billers. The top billers get all the accolades. I'm probably most interested in the top managers, and the people that are going out of their way to help build that fans, not customer base. They typically are actually your best producers as well.
Yeah. Why is that, do you think?
Because they're not cutting corners and they care, right? And the people that care are the ones that are probably still going to be here in 10 years' time, and the ones that we want to keep, over 10 years' time. I think that it's little things, right? I always notice this when you go to our bathrooms, you kind of have an attitude of, the cleaner will come and clean it up after me. And I see some people taking towels and wiping down the surface after they're washing their hands, which I always do, because it takes you 3 seconds, right? You're going to throw the paper towel away anyway. And I really like that. But you can see that this is my workplace and I care about it. And you've got others, well, that's someone else's job.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this point of not cutting corners, I think, is really, key phrase of yours, right? You said it in all these different areas. And, the industry benchmark, or the survey that you did, again, you didn't cut the corners, right? You went to the next level. So presumably this means that you can do fewer things, right? So there must be a trade-off, right? If you bring quality, go the extra mile on some of these tasks or areas, there must be a sacrifice somewhere that occurs, or trade-off. So what is that? Is it that you do fewer things, but they're better? Or is it, how do you see that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing you're probably the expert on this, right? In terms of coaching and, how do people multiply their impact? Um, I don't know. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but my view is that if you do fewer things as an A star, but do them really well and then hit repeat, has a greater impact than doing lots of things as a C minus. And
Or even actually an A, if I'm honest.
yeah, and I think I take that approach to maybe intuitively, but in most aspects of life, like I've reduced my life down into probably 3 or 4 component parts, right? One is work, friends, church, family, and hopefully don't necessarily go in that order in terms of priorities. But within work, how do I've definitely spent times where I've been a busy fool, running around like a headless chicken, playing whack-a-mole, and you're doing a lot just to stand still. And over time, we talked about wisdom right at the beginning. How do you find some self-control to really focus on the big levers that can have the greatest impact? And a lot of that is people would say, "Oh, you stop caring." It's not about not caring. It's about really understanding where can I have impact and what's going to make the biggest difference. Similar to, I don't.
Well, actually, let me just point. There was just point on that whole point. Stop caring. It's like that holds people back so much because they feel, if I stop doing things, then I'm going to be letting people down and so forth. So that's actually why in my book, Making Time for Strategy, the I stands for influence, because we often need to renegotiate our expectations or the expectations of people around us. Because actually, if we really get in touch with our greatest contribution, then we are going to have conversations saying, look, this thing I used to do, it's not my greatest service, actually, point. And so it's not, it can feel like I'm going to be letting people down, but actually, if you take the bigger picture and you zoom out, you're actually making the biggest contribution by doing this. I just wanted to pick up on that because I think that people
I'm glad we're aligned on that. Because it makes perfect sense. Again, conceptually, one of those things that's easy to understand, hard to implement. And I think I've tried to apply that to, my wife would say that I like routine, or I should say that you live a very ordered life, and I think that's probably quite true. And there's some discipline to that, but I've got the blocks that I make sure I have time to exercise every day, because I don't exercise, I don't feel good in myself, right? So I'll carve out time to exercise. I wake up a little bit earlier than I'd like to in the morning, because as I get older and as I'm a man, I need to stretch in the morning, right? So I'll do my stretch, and make sure that I read every day. And it's kind of hardwired that I'll read 20 pages of a book every single day. There are little things that, that I would, hardwire. And so enable that to happen, what do I have to cut out, right? I have to cut out watching TV. I don't watch an awful lot of TV. Partly I don't enjoy it much, but it's also, I won't remember it. I don't think it has any lasting impact. So I find other ways to relax. So, and it's not that I'm a machine. I think that's that slight discipline applied to how do I spend my time and what's going to create your biggest impact. I still try and find time to socialize, right? I like having a drink. I don't love food that much, but I like catching up with friends, and I think I'm fairly deliberate on how frequently and how when I'll do it. What it doesn't allow me to do is drop everything drop a pen and say let's go to the pub tonight, right? Because I've probably got it pre-planned from 3 months later. So there is a catch. There is a catch to it as well, but that's the bit when you think about what we talked about, right? Wisdom, it's hard gained, right? As you get older. When I was 21, my early 20s, like everyone, tons of energy, but tons of wasted energy running around town doing all sorts of things. And as you get older, I think one of the plus points of having slightly less energy is hopefully you gain some wisdom to how to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I found that this, as you know, one of the things how I spend my days really is helping entrepreneurs and CEOs really raise their game to go for the thing which right now feels impossible for them because they're already successful, but they're at a certain level. And the big shift, and that's why I wrote the book, I guess, and one of the original shifts is you're going to have to let go of a lot of things, and to create space for fewer things that are going to be more impactful. And that's why often people think, oh, the next level is going to be, I don't want to go anymore because I'm already burnt out. I'm already working hard, right? But the paradox, I think, is that when you let go of the noise, you focus on a few things, it can become simpler to have the impact that you want. And speaking of somebody, the problem is most leaders, including myself, know how to be really productive, right? And can do a lot of things and have the capacity to do a lot of things and enjoy it intellectually often. And so it's quite a visceral process sometimes of having to go, you know what, like, let's do the few things which are simple. It might be quite hard because they might represent a new level, things we haven't done before, but are going to open the doors to the next realm. And it can be hard because we know we're very, very good at a large number of things, and we could be quite easily adding value in all those areas. So I
think it's a scary place to be, isn't it? You're coaching people to have a bit of, white space to allow them to think. And most of us who achieve something have got there by working hard and being busy. We train people to be busy, just do more. And the more you do, the more successful you'll get. And then you do run out of road, right? How much more can I keep doing? And it's exhausting. And I've definitely been there. I've been at the point where I was like, I physically cannot work any harder, right? And I feel terrible. And you're not in a, what we call a state of flow. You're not really enjoying it, right? You're really busy. Your cortisol is absolutely pumping through your body, which your body loves. And that fear factor, when you turn off the cortisol, you are fried. And being able to stop, pause, take a step back, and assess the landscape, and then go again, I think is really, really powerful. In the kind of footballing analogy, you look at the best footballers, and they seem to have so much time on the ball, right? And you look at it and go, well, you're playing the same game, but you don't look hurried. I think I'm sort of thinking of Zidane, and it's beautiful to watch, right? And I'm guessing that you've got, I've got definitely worked with CEOs or leaders that look fried all the time and look frenzied and busy and running around. And yet you look at the way the business and they're moving forwards, it's by inches. And I've got people that look like they're never hurried, and yet they're taking leaps and bounds forwards. It's incredible to see.
Well, that's actually, it's a beautiful point. I spend a lot of time talking with CEOs and entrepreneurs, and I find that the most successful ones are the ones who are prepared, who take the most time in things which are outside of their so-called focus, right? So what I mean is that sometimes people will say, I'm just too busy right now. I'm just, I've got my goals. I'm just really busy. I'm focused in. I'm dived in. All I mean is I'm too busy to have like this potential moment of serendipity or insight. Right, it's like the guy in that YouTube video where they pass around the basketball between the two basketball teams, and there's a guy in a gorilla suit that walks through the mix. Right?
Yeah, we used that last week.
Yeah, and basically people are so focused so often on all the things that are going on, they don't see the person in the gorilla suit walking through the match. And I think that's kind of where the more successful people actually have trained themselves to observe the bigger picture, right? Get out of their little productivity tunnel, in fact. Yeah.
And I always think that they tend to be the most impressive. They seem to have so much poise. And they probably, I've definitely had one former investor. You'd only ever get 15 minutes, but in 15 minutes, you're absolutely locked on. You've got your attention, and you're very carefully, without even noticing, we've moved on. But is supremely efficient at going from one conversation to another, zoning on that conversation and moving on others. It's a very impressive thing to be part of and to watch when you look back on it.
Yeah, beautiful. So, Logan, two questions I'd love to perhaps use to wrap up with this, which is, the first is, what's it look like for you, or for the business, for the business to multiply your impact over the coming years? Like, what would you love to see happen over the next 2 or 3 years?
I'd like us to grow. We've got a growth imperative because we are PE backed. So we have an onus to our external shareholders. I think there's a wider market opportunity, right? If I go back to that point, that I think talking about one's career, helping people find the right jobs, helping people find the right staff is a huge driver for progress as a human race. And that's us playing our part in it. And I think that, given what we talked about, how it's done badly in lots of instances, our onus is to make sure we go out and help people do it in a better way. And then the third thing is our onus to our shareholders internally, our staff and colleagues, right? How do I enable those people to grow and flourish within the organization? That's a huge driver for me. I really, really enjoy seeing people go and achieve things they didn't think they could do internally. And you have stories of that happening in the business. It definitely doesn't happen in a straight line, right? You see people undulate and plateau and then shoot up again. And it requires an enormous amount of patience and different ways of unlocking that talent internally. But if we keep doing that, then we'll keep building an army of fans, not customers, and the business will grow. And I just like, outside of an EBITDA number, I'd like people to look back on this business and go, they did it differently. It was against the grain of what the usual recruitment firm looked like in our industry. But there was something, people will always, your point, what's the magic sauce? There's nothing magic about it. It's doing the basics really well.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And the last question then is, what might your next level be? So how might you need to level up, change the way you operate, change the way that you lead to see your colleagues flourish even more, to release a new level of growth in the business? I always believe that there's no business transformation without personal transformation. So what comes to mind as I say that? What might be an edge for you to lean into?
That's a great question. Probably not one I'm prepared for. I think that the journey for me has been one of being able to help grow others and growing with them. Right? We had a good group of people that started this business in 2012. We've grown up together. We've all changed and developed at different rates and in different ways. We've seen some people actually blow the lights out. Our CEO of Dartmouth joined as a graduate and has shot the lights out. We won't all develop at that rate, but I think that go back to, we don't have any assets apart from our people. My journey's inherently entwined with everyone else's. The quicker that I can grow and develop and create more space, the quicker others can as well. And so we'll do that in lockstep with one another over the next few years.
Yeah. So doing it together, seeing what they need and seeing how you change. Well, hey, Logan, it's been great. It's been a pleasure to speak with you today. I've loved the fact we've gone really deep. We've gone into matters of faith. We've gone into culture. We've gone into, really just standards of excellence and, raising the bar, right? Perhaps having fewer things, but raising the bar on those so that they stand out, right? Whether it's your NPS score that kind of goes off the charts, whether it's, a survey that actually becomes the industry standard because of its rigor and attention to detail. I think what I'm hearing is a story of these bricks being put in place and a real lot of attention being placed on each component of the business. Right? Are we delivering at a level which is going to be remarkable? And once you have enough of those remarkable things in place, whether they're interactions with customers or cultural building blocks or marketing assets, whatever it is, then those things start to really pay off and compound on each other, which presumably is what's happened in your business and why you've seen the growth that you have. So want to wish you all the best, and we'll look forward to following along on this. If people want to find out about you or about the business, where do they go to do that?
You can probably have a look at our websites or LinkedIn. So www.kernel-global.com has my bio and a link to my LinkedIn and my email address.
Perfect. Well, I'll put that into the show notes. And yeah, Logan, it's been great speaking with you, and look forward to following along on the next chapter.
Thanks, Richard. Really enjoyed it.
Bye-bye. Well, that's a wrap. If you received value from this conversation, please do leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. We'd deeply appreciate it. And if you'd like to check out the show notes from this episode, head to xquadrant.com/podcast, where you'll find all the details. Now, finally, when you're in top leadership, who supports and challenges you at a deep level to help you multiply your impact? Discover more about the different ways we can support you at xquadrant.com.